As we get older, we start to realize that there are certain things in life that we'd like to change. Maybe you wish you had unspent so much time worrying, or you wish you had uneaten quite so much junk food when you were younger. But it's too late now, and you can only move forward. Unless, of course, you could turn back the clock and do it all again. Wouldn't that be great? Well, actually, it's been great for a lot of people, because they've done exactly that. Well, at least they've tried to. History is full of people who have attempted to turn back the clock and stay young forever. In fact, it's full of people who have tried to stay young forever using some pretty bizarre methods. So here are 5 weird ways that people tried to live forever. No. 5. Mercury. When you think of something that's poisonous, you probably think of something like arsenic or cyanide. However, there are other things that are poisonous too. For example, mercury is extremely poisonous to humans, even in small amounts. That didn't stop one man from trying to drink a pound of it. He was, after all, the emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang, and he wanted to live forever. This was around 200 BC, and according to legend, his servants mixed a pound of mercury into wine and forced him to drink it. Why? Well, he'd heard that this would grant him immortality, but unfortunately for him, it didn't. Instead, it made him very sick, and he died soon after. This is not the only time that mercury has been used in an attempt to achieve immortality, though. In the early 1900s, it was popular in the US for doctors to prescribe mercury-based pills, which were said to increase vigor and improve sex lives. Sounds great, right? Well, in reality, they caused all sorts of physical and psychological problems. Number 4. Diane de Poitiers. Diana de Poitiers was a French noblewoman who lived during the 16th century. She was also the mistress of King Henry II of France, and she was 23 years his senior. To make matters worse, she eventually outlived the king, and she did so while looking significantly younger than her actual age. How did she manage to stay so young for so long? Well, it might have had something to do with the fact that she consumed a concoction that contained drinkable gold. Unfortunately for her, the drink didn't keep her alive forever, but it certainly helped her maintain her youth for many years. Of course, we now know that this drink didn't really have anything to do with gold, but instead contained mercury, lead, and arsenic. While all of these substances are poisonous to humans, it seems that Diana de Poitiers was able to avoid the negative effects, or perhaps she just didn't live long enough for them to kick in. We may never know the truth, but what we do know is that these poisons eventually caught up with her. In fact, they're believed to be the cause of her death. Number 3. Francis Bacon. You may have studied Francis Bacon in school, as he's considered one of the most important figures in the history of science. He's often referred to as the father of the scientific method, and he was a huge proponent of inductive reasoning. In short, he was a very smart man, and yet he came up with some pretty wacky ideas. One of his wackiest ideas had to do with living forever. Now it should be pointed out that he wasn't particularly interested in living forever himself, but he did believe that it was mankind's duty to extend the human lifespan. According to Bacon, humans should try to push the boundaries of life as much as possible. He believed that people would eventually be able to live up to 1,000 years old. So how did he propose that people extend their lives? Well, one of his ideas involved artificial respiration. He suggested that humans could keep themselves alive by forcing air into their bodies after their hearts stopped beating. Now, we know that this isn't possible, but Bacon was convinced that it could be done. In fact, he believed that it could be done by the year 2000, which of course, didn't happen. His other ideas were a little more realistic. He proposed that people could prolong their lives by eating healthy foods and avoiding bad ones. It's safe to say that this advice is still relevant today. No. 2. Alchemists. Before penicillin was invented, the search for an elixir of life often led to strange mixtures being consumed. This was especially true during the Middle Ages, when people believed that strange mixtures could cure all sorts of ailments. One of the most popular of these elixirs was called alkahest. Alkahest was a substance that was believed to be able to dissolve all things. As such, it was thought to be a powerful cleaning agent and a highly effective medicine. There was just one problem: alkahest didn't exist. Despite this, many people believed that it could be created by mixing various ingredients, such as salt, sugar, and wheat. Naturally, people started consuming this mixture in order to gain its health benefits. Unfortunately, these people were usually unaware that they were putting highly toxic substances into their bodies. In some cases, the mixtures contained as much as 80% alcohol, and yet people still drank them. Eventually, the recipe for alkahest was refined, and it became safer to consume, but this didn't stop people from using it to try to cheat death. Even today, there are people who claim that alkahest can cure diseases such as AIDS and cancer. Needless to say, there's no scientific evidence to support these claims. Number 1. Biohacking. Over the last few decades, biohacking has become increasingly popular. In fact, it's become so popular that there are entire communities of biohackers around the world. But what exactly does biohacking involve? Well, it involves using technology to improve oneself. This can include using devices such as wearable tech to monitor your health or using genetic engineering to modify your DNA. Some biohackers take things a step further and use drugs to improve themselves. For example, some biohackers take high doses of vitamin D to boost their immune systems. Others take drugs such as modafinil to improve their cognitive function. And then there are those who take things to the extreme, like the so-called blood hackers. Blood hackers are biohackers who regularly inject themselves with their own blood plasma. They believe that doing this helps them to heal faster and improve their overall health. However, there's no evidence to support these claims. But biohackers don't stop there. Many of them are trying to find ways to reverse the aging process. Some biohackers take a cocktail of drugs that include growth hormone, testosterone, and insulin-like growth factor. They believe that taking these drugs will slow down the aging process and allow them to live longer. As always, there's no proof that this works, but that doesn't stop biohackers from trying. Which brings us to the question, will we ever be able to live forever? Well, maybe not in the way that we think. Scientists have made incredible breakthroughs in the field of genetics, and many believe that we'll eventually be able to manipulate genes in such a way that we can extend the human lifespan. However, this doesn't mean that we'll be able to live forever. In the end, it's likely that we'll still be mortal. What do you think? Is it possible to live forever? If so, would you want to? Let me know in the comments below. Also, before you go, make sure to check out my other content. Thanks for watching.